Are your hands too small to play bass? No, they're not. All right, thanks for watching. Hello? Why does it feel like my hands are too small? Ah, good question, young Padawan. Here are 5 mistakes people with small hands make that screw up their bass game. I'll show you how to avoid these mistakes to make playing bass easier and safer, no matter how long your fingers aren't. If you're grabbing the neck like a baseball bat, you're never gonna have the reach to play bass comfortably. But I see this all the time, like gripping the neck, thumb over the top, fingers are like slanted and twisted. Not only does this make it impossible to get a good stretch, but it twists your pinky away from the bass, which takes you down from 4 fretting fingers to 3. As you may have noticed, I have like giant alien fingers, but I can turn them into useless no-reach mitts just by wrecking my position. Wow, that sounded even worse than I thought it would. So let's dial in your basic hand position. This is a mini version of the process I take you through in my very first lesson video here on YouTube. Start with your bass out of the equation and just look at your palm out in front of you. You should have your shoulder and your elbow relaxed. Your wrist is straight or maybe slightly curled forward. Fingers are straight or slightly curled forward, and your thumb is resting off to the side of your hand. Now don't change anything, just grab the bass with your other hand and plop the neck behind your fingers. And that's what you're aiming for with your fretting position. So your fingers are basically perpendicular to the strings instead of slanted. There's space between the neck and your hand instead of gripped up, and you actually stand a chance of reaching with your pinky, unlike when it's twisted away. Speaking of the pinky, a lot of people struggle to reach it over to the E string. God, son of a. So here's a pinkification exercise to help you out. Straighten all 4 fingers and reach over to the E string with your pinky. See what you need to do with your elbow and wrist to actually make that happen. You may need to also raise your strap height or tilt your neck angle up more. Now just bend your other 3 fingers to line up on the E string as well. And that's the basic position for using all 4 fingers on the E string. The pinky is straight-ish and the longer fingers are bent. Check out Victor Wooten for an example of good positioning. You might think bass virtuosos all have big hands, but Victor really doesn't. He's got small hands and he's super short. You can see he's making his hand size work by keeping pretty perpendicular, gentle forward curves in the wrist and fingers, and fretting with the pinky. Okay, 2, 4, 5, 6. I can't play this, I can't stretch that far. Well, you can actually play that same riff with the same fingering as a huge-handed person. You just need to microshift. Microshifting means letting your hand glide around within a position rather than holding big stretches. So here's the riff with the big stretch, with the alien fingers, but here's the same riff, same fingering using microshifting. People often get confused on this point. Microshifting does not mean changing which fingers you use on which frets. It's just about whether you're stretching or shifting to get there. Though adapting fingerings may also be helpful if you have small hands, and I cover how to make fingering choices more in my fretting showdown video. Microshifting gets some flack for being inefficient, but it actually saves energy. Stretching your hand out like this creates a lot of tension in the small muscles of your hand, whereas shifting is a simple movement at the shoulder and elbow, which uses much larger muscle groups that don't have to do much work to move your hand like this. So microshifting is super useful even when you do have the stretch skills. I use it a ton, and I recommend it to my beginner to badass students all the time when they're not yet able to make a stretch. 3 tips to have microshifting success. 1, keep your fretting hand thumb pressure as light as possible. That'll keep it from getting stuck on the neck and messing up your hand angle. 2, listen for note length. Often beginners have big silent gaps between notes when shifting because they're taking time to get ready. But you should be able to have notes flow right into each other with practice. You can practice something like 1st fret with the index finger to 5th fret with the pinky finger. And you want to get the shift as fast as you can, but don't just like speed up the notes. You want to think slow notes, fast shifts. And tip 3, microshift your hand on over to that like and subscribe button for more foolproof bass lessons. Okay, seriously, another BS call to action. When can we stop putting these in every YouTube video? Here's Kim Deal of the Pixies whipping out some serious microshifting. As you can hear, it's a totally legit strategy to get around hand size limitations.
With her lips she said,
It's day one. You've picked up your bass, plopped your fretting hand on the neck, and decided that you don't have enough stretch to play bass. You have done the wrong thing. What you start with is not all you've got. You build flexibility over time playing bass, just like with stretching or yoga, and you shouldn't show up to your first yoga class expecting to match the teacher's flexibility. Your flexibility will naturally get better the longer you play, if you're in a good position and you're working on your stretch bit by bit. But here are a couple ways you can jumpstart the process. One, start your playing sessions by warming up your hands however you like. You can rub them together, you can clap them a bit, you can make and unmake fists with some isometric tension. The idea is just to get some blood and warmth flowing so you can stretch better and also be less injury prone. And two, do flexibility exercises. There are like infinity of these online that you can try out, many of which you can do without a bass. But I think doing things in context is usually best. So here's a simple on the bass exercise. All you have to do is play index, middle, ring, pinky on frets 9, 10, 11, 12. The trick is to keep your fingers pressed down and in position so you're actually holding the stretch, not micro-shifting like this. This is the same basic exercise I start you with in my 5 levels of finger exercise video. Now this may already be too much stretch for you, in which case you can start it a little higher where the frets are smaller, maybe on 12, 13, 14, 15. But over time, you'll be working your stretch down to the bigger lower frets. So once you can do 9, 10, 11, 12, then you can try 8 through 11, then 7 through 10. Being able to hold that stretch comfortably starting on the 5th fret, so 5, 6, 7, 8, is a good flexibility goal to start with. You can work further down than that, but if you have small hands, it might be unreasonable to try to get yourself to hold that 1 finger per fret stretch on the lowest frets of the bass. So if you can hold a 3 fret stretch from the 1st fret with index, middle, pinky, that'll get you through most bass playing. According to the internet, standard scale 34 inches from nut to bridge basses just aren't built for the small-handed. Curse you, Leo Fender! The supposed fix is to get a shorter scale, which range from 32 inches on down to 28.6. But is this a real need, or is it another internet bass myth, like the whole pick versus fingers mess? The reality is that plenty of small-handed people play standard 34-inch scale basses and get around just fine. A short scale might feel better for you, and that's great, but solving a reach problem this way could also be a cover-up for bad hand position, not micro-shifting, and not working flexibility. Hey, here's Ellen from Ellen Plays Bass again on a standard scale P bass. See how she's using micro-shifting, good neutral hand position, and fretting with the pinky to make the bass work for her. Reality check, there is absolutely some crazy technical riffage out there that you'd have trouble playing with small hands. It does exist. I'm gonna sit this one out. But 90+% of bass playing is not that. Half the time, we're just playing roots and fifths, and even a lot of the hard riffs we all wanna learn are totally doable without big stretches. To demonstrate how much you can get done with no stretch at all, plus some hubris, here are some riffs I played in my fretting showdown video with just 1 finger. Here's Rocco Prestia, bass player of Tower of Power. I don't think I've ever seen Rocco actually stretch his hand. He makes the magic happen by using positioning and micro-shifting. So now you know that hand size isn't as much of an obstacle to successful bass playing as most people think. Please share this video with anyone who thinks they can't play bass because of size.
Fight!